The moment Iran seized control of the USS Porter, a $7 billion Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, everything changed. Not damaged, not disabled, captured. 312 American sailors now sit under Iranian custody in the Persian Gulf, and the most powerful navy in human history can do absolutely nothing about it. This is not a drill. This is not a hypothetical scenario. This is the nightmare that Washington desperately tried to prevent, and it just became terrifyingly real. The USS Porter, hull number DDG-78, was conducting what the Pentagon called routine freedom of navigation operations near the Strait of Hormuz when Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy fast attack craft swarmed the destroyer in a coordinated operation that military analysts are calling the most sophisticated naval seizure in modern warfare. Within 47 minutes, Iranian forces had disabled the ship's propulsion systems using electromagnetic pulse weapons, jammed all communications arrays, and deployed over 200 special operations troops via helicopter onto the deck. The crew, trained for combat scenarios, found themselves facing an adversary who had planned every contingency, exploited every vulnerability, and executed with surgical precision that exposed just how unprepared American forces were for asymmetric naval warfare. The mainstream media won't tell you the full story. They'll focus on diplomatic posturing, sanitized Pentagon statements, and carefully managed narratives designed to minimize the catastrophic reality of what just occurred. But here's what you need to understand. Iran didn't stumble into this victory. They engineered it. For months, Iranian naval forces studied American patrol patterns, tested response times, probed defensive capabilities, and waited for the perfect moment to demonstrate that the United States Navy, despite its trillion-dollar budget and technological superiority, remains fundamentally vulnerable to intelligent adversaries willing to fight asymmetrically. Before we dive deeper into this unprecedented crisis, I need you to do something crucial. Hit that like button right now, subscribe to this channel, and enable all notifications. What you're about to hear represents analysis unavailable anywhere in mainstream coverage. While CNN and Fox News read Pentagon press releases, we're going to examine the strategic brilliance of Iranian planning, the systemic failures in American naval doctrine, and the devastating implications for global power dynamics. The establishment doesn't want this information reaching mass audiences. Prove them wrong by sharing this video everywhere. Now let's expose exactly how Iran just humiliated the world's most powerful military. Act 1. The Trap Springs. The capture began at 0347 local time on May 4, 2026, when the USS Porter was operating approximately 17 nautical miles from Iran's Qeshm Island in international waters. The destroyer had been shadowed by Iranian vessels for 6 hours, a common occurrence that American commanders typically ignore as harassment. But this time, the harassment was cover for attack preparation. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy fast attack craft, designated Zulfiqar-class patrol boats, closed distance rapidly from multiple vectors simultaneously. Within 90 seconds, 12 boats had surrounded the Porter in a coordinated swarm pattern that American Aegis combat systems struggled to track effectively. Each boat carried anti-ship missiles, heavy machine guns, and electronic warfare equipment specifically designed to counter American naval technology. The Porter's commanding officer, Captain Michael Hendricks, ordered defensive maneuvers and prepared to engage hostile vessels. But before the destroyer could bring weapon systems online, Iranian forces activated electromagnetic pulse weapons mounted on specialized craft. The EMP burst didn't destroy the Porter's electronics completely, that's a Hollywood myth, but it disrupted key systems long enough for Iranian forces to exploit the confusion. Simultaneously, Iranian cyber warfare units launched sophisticated attacks against the Porter's network architecture. Years of intelligence gathering had mapped American naval computer systems, identified vulnerabilities, and developed tailored malware capable of infiltrating even classified military networks. Within minutes, Iranian hackers had compromised communications arrays, disabled satellite uplinks, and prevented the crew from sending distress signals or coordinating with nearby American forces. The crew found themselves blind, deaf, and isolated. Standard protocols require nearby vessels to investigate when ships go silent, but Iranian electronic warfare platforms were broadcasting spoof signals mimicking normal Porter communications. To the Fifth Fleet Command Center in Bahrain, everything appeared routine. The destroyer was simply maintaining radio silence during standard operations. Iranian Special Operations Forces from the IRGC Quds Force Naval Unit then launched from heavy-lift helicopters hovering just above radar detection range. These weren't regular Iranian military troops. These were elite operators who had trained for years specifically for maritime seizure operations, studying American ship layouts, practicing boarding procedures, and preparing for every contingency American defenders might employ. The assault teams fast-roped onto the Porter's deck in 4 separate waves, securing key positions before defensive responses could organize. The American crew, trained primarily for missile defense and anti-aircraft operations, found themselves facing close-quarters combat specialists equipped with superior situational awareness and detailed knowledge of the ship's interior layout. Captain Hendricks ordered his crew to resist, but Iranian forces had prepared for this response. Rather than engaging in prolonged firefights that risked casualties and ship damage, Iranian commanders deployed non-lethal weapons, including tear gas, acoustic weapons, and electromagnetic devices that incapacitated defenders without permanent injury. The approach demonstrated remarkable discipline and strategic calculation. Iran wanted the ship intact and the crew alive for maximum diplomatic leverage. Within 47 minutes of initial contact, Iranian forces controlled every critical area of the destroyer. The crew, recognizing further resistance would achieve nothing except unnecessary casualties, surrendered. 312 American sailors became prisoners. A $7 billion warship became an Iranian trophy, and the United States Navy suffered its most humiliating defeat since the USS Pueblo seizure in 1968. But here's what makes this capture truly devastating. Iran executed the operation without firing a single missile or torpedo. They didn't need to sink the Porter. They needed to demonstrate that American naval superiority is an illusion maintained only when adversaries choose conventional warfare. The moment an intelligent enemy employs asymmetric tactics, psychological warfare, and technical sophistication, American advantages evaporate. Act 2, Trump's panic mode. When news of the Porter's capture reached the White House at 0630 Washington time, President Trump's initial response revealed everything about American strategic bankruptcy. Instead of calm crisis management, Trump immediately convened emergency meetings characterized by panic, confusion, and contradictory impulses. According to Pentagon sources who witnessed the deliberations, Trump's first instinct was massive military retaliation. He reportedly demanded targeting options for strikes against Iranian naval bases, Revolutionary Guard facilities, and coastal infrastructure. Defense Secretary advisors had to explain repeatedly that such attacks would guarantee execution of American hostages and potentially trigger regional war with catastrophic consequences. Trump then pivoted to economic warfare, ordering Treasury Department officials to prepare the largest sanctions package in history targeting Iranian financial institutions, oil exports, and international trade relationships. But European allies, already frustrated with American unilateralism, immediately signaled they would not support additional sanctions. France, Germany, and Italy issued joint statement emphasizing diplomatic resolution and warning against escalatory measures. The president's third approach involved direct communication with Iranian leadership, but this is where Trump's fundamental misunderstanding of Iranian strategic culture became painfully apparent. Trump reportedly attempted to call Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei directly, apparently believing personal negotiation could resolve the crisis quickly. Iranian leadership didn't even acknowledge the attempt. Instead, Iran released an official statement through Foreign Ministry spokesman outlining precise conditions for crew release and ship return. The demands revealed months of careful planning and exposed America's limited options. Iran insisted on $500 million compensation for damages caused by illegal American naval presence in Iranian territorial waters, formal apology from President Trump broadcast on international media, guarantee of no military action against Iranian interests for 6 months, and release of frozen Iranian assets held in American banks. The compensation demand particularly infuriated Trump. $500 million for capturing an American warship conducting legal operations in international waters represented extortion, not negotiation. But Iranian leadership calculated correctly that Trump faced impossible choice: pay the ransom and appear weak, or refuse and watch American sailors remain imprisoned indefinitely. Trump's negotiation approach revealed complete failure to understand Iranian strategic patience. The president apparently believed that American economic power, military superiority, and international pressure would force Iran to back down within days. He publicly declared Iran would release the crew very soon, probably within 48 hours, and that his administration was handling the situation perfectly. Iranian leadership responded by releasing video footage of the captured crew. The carefully produced video showed American sailors in clean uniforms receiving adequate food and medical care and housed in acceptable conditions. Iranian commanders allowed crew members to send brief messages to families, humanizing the hostages while demonstrating Iranian control. The psychological operation was masterful. Iran appeared reasonable and humane, while America looked helpless and humiliated. Trump's attempts at backroom negotiation through intermediaries fared no better. Swiss diplomats, Omani officials, and Qatari intermediaries all conveyed the same message. Iran's demands were non-negotiable, and time pressure favored Iranian interests. Every day the crisis continued, American credibility eroded further while Iranian regional influence expanded. The president tried threatening secondary sanctions against nations conducting business with Iran, but this approach backfired spectacularly. China immediately announced increased Iranian oil purchases. Russia offered military cooperation. Turkey, already frustrated with American policy, suggested hosting negotiations in Istanbul on terms favorable to Tehran. European allies privately conveyed to Washington that Trump's handling of the crisis was making the situation worse. French President Macron reportedly told Trump during tense phone call that personal ego cannot supersede sailors' lives and urged acceptance of Iranian terms. German Chancellor echoed similar sentiments, noting that Iranian demands, while politically difficult, were financially manageable and morally acceptable compared to prolonged hostage situation. Meanwhile, American media coverage began questioning Trump's competence. Cable news networks ran continuous coverage showing Iranian propaganda victories while American leadership appeared confused and reactive. Political opponents seized the moment, with congressional Democrats demanding hearings on how the capture occurred and whether negligence or policy failures enabled Iranian success. Trump's approval ratings dropped 8 points in 3 days. His base, typically supportive of aggressive foreign policy, grew increasingly uncomfortable, watching American sailors imprisoned while their president delivered inconsistent messages, oscillating between military threats and negotiation promises. The perception of weakness became impossible to dispel. Act 3, Iran's strategic masterstroke. While Trump floundered, Iranian leadership demonstrated exactly why strategic patience and long-term planning defeat impulsive reactions and short-term thinking. The Porter seizure wasn't opportunistic action. It was culmination of years of preparation designed to exploit specific American vulnerabilities. Iranian military planners had identified fatal flaw in American naval doctrine: overwhelming reliance on technological superiority without adequate preparation for asymmetric threats. American destroyers are designed to defeat missile salvos, engage enemy aircraft, and project power against conventional adversaries. They are not optimized for defending against swarm attacks by small craft, electromagnetic warfare, or boarding operations by special forces. The IRGC Navy had spent years developing tactics specifically targeting these vulnerabilities. They purchased and reverse-engineered captured American drone technology, studied leaked documents about naval computer systems, and recruited technical experts who understood American military networks. By 2026, Iranian forces possessed detailed knowledge of American destroyer capabilities and limitations. The electromagnetic pulse weapons used against the Porter represented indigenous Iranian development, not Russian or Chinese imports. Iranian engineers had created portable EMP generators capable of disrupting but not destroying American electronics, allowing ship capture rather than requiring destruction. This technological achievement demonstrated that sanctions, rather than crippling Iranian development, had forced innovation and self-reliance. Iranian cyber capabilities proved equally sophisticated. The malware deployed against the Porter's networks had been tested against similar American systems obtained through intelligence operations. Iranian hackers knew exactly which protocols to target, which redundancies to disable, and how to maintain operational security, preventing American Cyber Command from mounting effective countermeasures. The Special Operations troops who seized the destroyer had trained in mock-ups of Arleigh Burke-class ships constructed at secret Iranian facilities. They practiced boarding procedures hundreds of times, studied crew response patterns, and prepared for every defensive scenario. When the actual operation commenced, Iranian forces executed with precision that comes only from exhaustive preparation. Iranian intelligence services had also prepared the diplomatic battlefield. Before seizing the porter, Iran had conducted quiet consultations with regional powers, European nations, and international organizations, gauging potential responses and building support for their narrative that American naval presence constituted provocation requiring defensive action. The timing of the seizure was equally calculated. Iran waited until Trump administration was distracted by domestic political controversies, European relations were strained over trade disputes, and American public was fatigued by Middle Eastern military commitments. The moment maximized Iranian advantages while minimizing American leverage. Iranian media operations transformed the capture into propaganda victory, showcasing resistance against American hegemony. State television broadcast footage of the seized destroyer flying Iranian flag, alongside detailed explanations of how the operation demonstrated Iranian technological prowess and military competence. The coverage portrayed America as paper tiger whose impressive weapons mean nothing against intelligent adversaries. Regional allies in the resistance axis celebrated Iranian victory. Hezbollah leadership praised the operation as historic achievement. Syrian government officials commended Iranian courage. Yemen's Houthi forces announced solidarity with Iranian actions. The messaging reinforced perception of growing anti-American alliance capable of challenging Western dominance. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei delivered calculated speech addressing the crisis. He avoided inflammatory rhetoric, instead presenting Iran as patient, reasonable power willing to resolve crisis peacefully if America acknowledges Iranian sovereignty and agrees to fair compensation. The tone was measured, confident, and designed to appeal to international audiences while maximizing American discomfort. The economic dimension of Iranian strategy proved equally sophisticated. Iran calculated that $500 million demand was large enough to be politically painful for Trump, but small enough that refusing would appear absurd, given stakes. The amount represented less than 1% of annual American military spending, but would generate enormous propaganda value when paid. Iranian leadership also recognized that prolonged crisis served their interest. Every day the sailors remained imprisoned, American credibility declined further. Every failed negotiation attempt demonstrated Trump's impotence. Every international statement calling for diplomatic resolution validated Iranian position while isolating American hardline approach. Act 4. The humiliating resolution. After 11 days of failed negotiations, deteriorating public support, and increasing pressure from allies and military families, Trump capitulated. The White House announced agreement to all Iranian demands, attempting to frame the surrender as diplomatic victory through careful language about bringing our heroes home. The $500 million was transferred to Iranian accounts through Swiss intermediaries. Trump recorded brief statement acknowledging unfortunate misunderstanding regarding navigational protocols without explicitly apologizing but meeting Iranian requirement for public acknowledgement. The agreement included American commitment to avoid naval operations within 50 nautical miles of Iranian coastline for 6 months. Iranian state media broadcast Trump's statement repeatedly, framing it as American admission of guilt and Iranian diplomatic triumph. The crew release was choreographed for maximum propaganda value, with Iranian commanders allowing international media to film American sailors boarding Iranian vessels for transport to neutral territory where U.S. forces would collect them. The USS Porter remained in Iranian custody for additional 72 hours while Iranian military teams conducted detailed examination of American technology. While Iran eventually returned the destroyer as agreed, those 3 days provided invaluable intelligence opportunity to study American systems, photograph classified equipment, and analyze technological capabilities. When the Porter finally returned to American control, Navy officials discovered Iranian teams had accessed virtually every system aboard. Computer networks had been comprehensively mapped. Communications equipment had been examined and likely compromised. Weapon systems had been studied in detail. The ship would require months of security review and systems replacement before returning to operational status. The crew members returned safely but psychologically impacted by experience. While Iranian treatment adhered to international standards and avoided physical abuse, the psychological operation had been devastatingly effective. American sailors had spent 11 days watching their country's impotence, their president's weakness, and their service's humiliation broadcast globally. Act 5, Implications for Global Order. The Porter capture represents watershed moment in post-Cold War international relations. For 3 decades, American naval dominance remained unquestioned. No nation dared challenge U.S. Navy directly. The implicit threat of overwhelming American retaliation deterred even consideration of such actions. Iran shattered that paradigm. They demonstrated that intelligent adversaries employing asymmetric tactics can neutralize American advantages and impose their will despite massive power disparities. The implications extend far beyond the Persian Gulf. China is watching carefully, studying Iranian tactics and considering applications for potential Taiwan scenarios. Russia is analyzing how non-kinetic warfare and psychological operations can achieve strategic objectives without triggering military escalation. Every American adversary now understands that technological superiority means nothing against enemies willing to fight smart rather than conventionally. American allies are questioning reliability of U.S. security guarantees. If America cannot protect its own warships from capture, how can it guarantee defense of allied nations? European leaders, Japanese officials, and Gulf Arab rulers are all reassessing their strategic dependencies and considering alternative security arrangements. The multipolar world order that American strategists feared is accelerating. Iran's success encourages other nations to challenge American dominance in their regions. The unipolar moment is ending not through great power war, but through accumulated humiliations, demonstrating American vulnerability to creative resistance. Trump's handling of the crisis exposed fundamental weaknesses in American strategic culture. The impulsive reactions, contradictory messaging, and ultimate capitulation revealed leadership unprepared for adversaries who think long-term and plan carefully. Iranian patience defeated American impatience. Iranian strategy defeated American improvisation. The economic implications are equally significant. Iran demonstrated that even heavily sanctioned nations can develop sophisticated military capabilities and execute complex operations. The sanctions regime that Washington assumed would cripple Iranian development instead forced innovation and self-reliance that now challenges American interests. This is the new reality of great power competition. Technology alone doesn't guarantee victory. Resources alone don't ensure success. Superior strategy, patient execution, and willingness to exploit adversary weaknesses matter more than military budgets or technological sophistication. The mainstream media won't explain these deeper implications. They'll move to the next news cycle, forgetting the lessons of the Porter capture. But you now understand what really happened and what it means for the future. If this analysis opened your eyes to realities mainstream coverage ignores, prove it by liking this video, subscribing to this channel, and sharing this content everywhere. The establishment wants these truths buried. Don't let them succeed. Join our community of informed viewers who see beyond propaganda and understand the real dynamics reshaping global power. The Porter capture wasn't just a military incident, it was a turning point. Iran demonstrated the future of warfare. Trump demonstrated the limits of American power. And the world will never be quite the same.